You've been on the right track. Each morning, after all these years, you find yourself waking up still feeling exhausted. Your joints have become noticeably stiffer over the past 3 years. The energy that was once a benefit of exercise still arrives, but now it comes at a higher price than before. Every time you bring it up, the response is always the same. That's simply the passage of time. It's not about getting older. The issue lies in the timing. Every single morning, the window of opportunity lasts for a full 90 minutes. Discover what's happening in your body even before you lace up your shoes. The initial 90 minutes after waking up are more than just a morning routine. Your body perceives it differently. It's a natural transformation. 3 processes are currently in progress, each at the halfway mark. Cellular repair is the initial step in the process. While you fast overnight, your cells engage in a vital maintenance process known as autophagy, identifying, dismantling, and recycling damaged proteins, dysfunctional components, and accumulated debris is essential. In a fasting state with low insulin levels and reduced mTOR signaling, the body's cleanup mechanisms operate at peak efficiency. This continues even after your alarm rings. The experience lingers on into the early morning hours, only to be resolved once you take a bite to eat. Your first meal concludes it, rather than tapering off. mTOR is activated, signaling the closure of the repair window. The window remains open at 7 a.m. when the majority of individuals tie their footwear. The next step involves your cortisol awakening response. Cortisol begins to increase roughly 30 minutes prior to the moment you awaken. It's not about stress, it's about mobilization. It boosts immune function and primes your cardiovascular system, your body's main natural anti-inflammatory agent. The morning boost is what reduces the inflammatory markers that build up during the night. The suppression is what transforms the morning window into a manageable experience for physical stress. After 65, that response becomes less sharp. A study examining the cortisol awakening response revealed that young adults experience significantly higher peaks, steeper curves, and quicker stabilization compared to adults aged 65 to 88, who exhibited lower peaks, flatter curves, and slower stabilization. The anti-inflammatory suppression that is meant to lower your morning inflammatory baseline is currently operating at only a fraction of its capacity from 20 years ago. The third is the adjustment of circadian rhythms. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, your body's master clock, receives its primary timing signal within the first 30 to 60 minutes after you wake up. The signal you perceive is the natural light entering your eyes. The timing and magnitude of the cortisol response are established, the anti-inflammatory cascade is activated, and the cellular processes that began overnight are expertly coordinated. The significance of these 3 processes lies not in any single one of them standing alone. They rely on each other. The cortisol response relies on the precise activation of the circadian signal. The cellular repair window relies on the cortisol curve remaining undisturbed by sudden physical stress. Remove one from the sequence, and the ripple effects will impact all 3. These systems are interconnected and cannot be managed in isolation. They must work in harmony, or the integrity of all is at risk. 3 interconnected systems, all in the midst of their processes. Many individuals are working out right in the thick of it. Let's delve into the specifics of how aging impacts your mornings, as this crucial aspect often goes unaddressed. Understanding this is essential, particularly when considering the timing after 65, as opposed to earlier years. As we age, the increase in inflammation has been well documented over the years. In older adults, baseline levels of inflammatory markers are significantly elevated. The medical literature identifies inflammation as a key factor rather than merely a side effect of aging. The persistent low-grade inflammation that builds up over time is closely linked to cardiovascular issues, cognitive deterioration, and hastened biological aging. Your morning sets the stage for how inflammation is handled or heightened each day, presenting the sequence. Your inflammatory baseline is now higher than it was at 45. Your cortisol awakening response, the mechanism designed to regulate that baseline, is diminished. The expected suppression in the initial hour is occurring, but at a diminished capacity. The baseline remains elevated for an extended period, exceeding expectations. Amidst the heightened inflammation and inadequate suppression, coupled with ongoing cellular repair, you introduce intense physical stress. Engaging in exercise leads to the production of inflammation. In a body equipped with sufficient anti-inflammatory capabilities and a smoothly operating morning transition, that signal is effectively managed, resolved, and transformed into adaptation. That's the essence of fitness. In individuals over 65, before the cortisol curve has stabilized, that inflammatory signal impacts a baseline that the aging body is already finding challenging to handle. The resolution is not seamless. What occurs instead is a resolution deficit, not a failure, not a crisis, just an incomplete clearing. The inflammatory response triggered by the workout lingers, not completely fading away before the baseline is established the following morning. Every day starts just a bit above where it ought to be. The increase is so minimal that it won't register on any individual blood panel, nor will it be noticeable on any given morning. It builds up over the course of a habit's timeline. While not immediately noticeable over the years, the effects of daily repetition accumulate significantly. The exhaustion your doctor links to aging, the joint stiffness, the inflammation on your tests that continues to be recorded and categorized as simply growing older. Part of it stems from age, while another aspect arises from years of engaging in the right exercise at the wrong biological hour. The biological clock is ticking, and those who grasp this distinction early on are the ones whose bodies at 75 are functioning at their best. They exhibit the inflammatory profile of someone a decade younger, not due to a superior supplement or a new workout regimen, but because they grasped that identical inputs yield entirely different biological outcomes based on the timing of their morning arrival. The issue lies in the way this is being monitored. Your annual physical evaluates key health markers, including cholesterol levels, blood pressure, blood glucose, and a fundamental metabolic panel. Your doctor utilizes these instruments to evaluate your cardiovascular health and monitor your organ markers. These instruments are invaluable, backed by robust research, and they effectively highlight the cardiovascular benefits of your exercise routine. The advantages are genuine, and these markers accurately reflect them. What remains unaddressed is inflammation. HSCRP is occasionally mentioned, sometimes highlighted, but seldom clarified in relation to biological aging. IL-6 and TNF-alpha, the key inflammatory cytokines closely associated with inflammaging, are rarely included in standard testing panels. They fall outside the conventional screening framework. It's essential to know the right questions to ask and to seek out a physician who is open to ordering tests beyond the usual protocol. Epigenetic clocks, which utilize DNA methylation assays to assess biological age, regardless of chronological age, have not yet been integrated into standard clinical practices. They are real, and the research supporting them is extensive. They forecast mortality and functional decline with a precision that chronological age simply cannot achieve, yet they remain outside the system your doctor operates within. What gets measured is managed, while what goes unmeasured quietly operates in the background, accumulating and compounding until it manifests as the symptoms associated with the decade you're experiencing. The monitoring gap isn't a shortcoming of your physician, rather, it's a systemic characteristic that hasn't yet adapted to the advanced tools available for assessing the realities of an aging body. While Bernard's HSCRP was observed, the necessary follow-up that could have provided a comprehensive understanding was not ordered. The standard panel delivered its intended message, yet it failed to address the most crucial question that arises after the age of 65. There's an underlying issue with the lighting, and it's exacerbating the situation further up the line. A comprehensive study analyzing approximately 13 million hours of personal light sensor data uncovered a significant pattern. Forecasts of brighter days and darker nights indicate a notably reduced mortality risk, regardless of age, lifestyle, or socioeconomic status. The mechanism operates via the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the natural morning light that greets you in the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking plays a crucial role in determining the timing and intensity of your cortisol awakening response. The response, already dulled after 65, relies on that signal firing accurately. A 60-year-old experiences about one-third of the daily light exposure compared to a 20-year-old. The lens of the eye becomes less effective with age. Senior individuals tend to spend a greater amount of time inside. The circadian signal is gradually diminishing at the very age when its accuracy is crucial. A diminished signal leads to a more muted response and reduced anti-inflammatory suppression, elevated inflammatory baseline during exercise onset. A single upstream issue that can be resolved in just 5 minutes. However, the majority of individuals over 65 start their day by checking their phones, brewing a cup of coffee under artificial lighting, and then setting out for their walk. The circadian signal that was expected to activate within the initial 20 minutes only partially engaged, at best. The cortisol response is still on the rise. The anti-inflammatory cascade is operating at a partial level, and then the journey commences. In those initial 20 minutes, the phone reveals an additional function that the research can't overlook. Content that triggers stress, such as news and notifications, causes a spike in cortisol, which interferes with the body's natural awakening process.